It is indeed with a very warm heart that we welcome you to today's episode of Tax Matters. Let's begin by playing a game. Can you remember what we did on the last episode of Tax Matters, just last week? Remember? Yes? No? Okay, let's help out. We served you excerpts from a paper presented by Mr. A.I Aliyara at the interactive session organized for ministries, departments, and agencies by the Individual and Enterprise Income Tax Department of the FIRS. It was held in Abuja on the 2nd of August. And Mr. Aliyara's paper was on the benefits of prompt filing of tax returns and remittance of same. In rounding up that part of that episode, we did promise that we'll conclude today and that we'll also move on to the robust interactive session that followed the presentation of the paper of Mr. Aliyara and that of his colleague, Mr. Peter Olayemi. That is what we are about today on today's episode of Tax Matters. My name is Olumuyiwa Matuluko.
So the level of compliance is very, very low. Most companies prefer to remain NCR. What we call NCR, once you are incorporated and you don't file returns, we class you as NCR. It's surprising a company that says it's NCR. Well, after 5 years, we'll come and say, okay, the government says I should apply for contract. I remember I've done some jobs. Or with the tax identification number that is being issued once you are incorporated, a company will come to you and say, I've not done anything. And when you key into our system, you see that it has transacted in millions. So that is why it's good for the MDAs to help the FIRS in ensuring that any contract you give, you obtain the tax identification number. Once you use that identification number and remit the tax, the FIRS will be able to capture it. And once you do that, there is the level of this evasion and avoidance will decrease. Some companies present fake tax clearance certificates. Some will come to us and say, we have not done anything. NCR, we issue nil. They will go and doctor it and present that they have turnover of 100 million and present to the MDAs. That's why the failure to confirm the tax clearance certificate or the registration identity of the contractor is attracting the 5 million. Because a lot of the taxpayers are presenting fake tax clearance certificates. And they only do that if you don't confirm and verify with the FIRS. Once they know you, by the time they present, you go and send it for confirmation with the FIRS. In fact, even when you are opening the pit, they will not come. Because they will know that they are presenting fake tax clearance certificate to you. So please help us to ensure that it's only the good corporate taxpayers that are enjoying the money other taxpayers are paying, which is being recycled to award contracts.
Oga, don't come. Tax man, now you sit down. How long you thought you go to bring the tax clearance certificate for me?
Oga, once you give me the money, the tax clearance certificate go ready now.
Now?
Yes, Oga.
Oga, wait, make I bring the money.
Wait. Agent for Federal Inland Revenue Service? This one a Wururu person. Come for here. Guy, forget all these Wururu people. Go any Federal Inland Revenue Service office where they near you. Go collect the original tax clearance certificate. To know the original tax clearance certificate, the tax certificate must get FIRS watermark. It go get signature on top of the FIRS seal, and the name of the tax office where they on top of the certificate must they correct. No print, no give, no even collect fake tax clearance certificate. FIRS don't want say anybody we then catch with fake tax clearance certificate, now jail straight.
For more information, visit www.firs.gov.ng or any FIRS office close to you. FIRS, it pays to pay your tax.
What are the benefits of filing of these returns? It makes it easier for you to obtain tax clearance certificates, which will enable you to transact your businesses legitimately. When you also comply, you avoid enforcement visits by our tax officials. Once they know this MDA is filing, nobody will say, they say, look, leave it aside, you don't need to go. So when you say our officers are coming, why coming to you alone? There must be a trigger. So if you are seeing our officers constantly, it means there is a problem with your remittances. You also enjoy tax incentive of the first self-assessment regime. You avoid payment of interest and penalties. And then it enables you to assess yourself. That is the self-assessment. You have dignity and respect. Then you can apply for government contracts, because by law, no government agency is allowed to award a contract to a non-compliant taxpayer. To the government, once you pay a tax, it increases the revenue to the government. It will be able to discharge its civil responsibilities, its duties, morals, better security, better NEPA, and other things.
Mr. Aliyara's paper and that of Mr. Olayemi before it generated a lot of interest and elicited robust comments from the audience. Let's begin by revisiting one of the novel provisions of the Personal Income Tax Amendment Act 2011, as highlighted by Mr. Olayemi in his own presentation.
The emolument paid to both permanent and temporary employees are now liable to personal income tax. And the very quick example of this will be amounts paid to youth corpers. You know, prior to now, allowances paid to youth corpers are not assessed to tax. But going forward, based on the provision of this law, at least the law expects you to deduct 1% from this allowance and remit to the relevant tax authority.
This sparked off a healthy debate.
My name is Pastor Jason Mwara. I'm the National President, Youth Organization for Unity and Total Harmony of Society. And I know the youths are watching from home. And we want to quickly protest the taxing of the NYSC. Now, Mr. CD, please, we wish to submit that the youth corpers of this country are the biggest taxpayers. For a professional, a graduate professional, who ordinarily would be worth 50,000 naira monthly and remuneration for his professional fees, whether a medical practitioner, an engineer, whatever, to be compelled by the federal government to render the same service for a paltry sum of 18,000 naira with family responsibilities. He has already forfeited 32,000 naira to the federal government. That translates into 384,000 naira annual tax revenue, and for 1,000 naira, for 1,000 youth corpers, that is 384 million naira. Okay? Now for you to burden them again is double taxation, and that is not acceptable by any means whatsoever. Now these gentlemen have responsibilities at home. Despite the hazards they face in whatever locations you post them to, they don't have a choice. Okay, so we don't want to even discuss it, and we are sending a petition to the Senate President, to the House, where we will be compelled to drag you and the federal government to the tax tribunal over this issue. You are not going to do it. You are not going to do it. It's not acceptable at all. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it, because out of the paltry sum, they still have to spend it, and they pay VAT on it. They pay VAT on it. It's simply not acceptable. Now, and our next submission is that the Honorable Minister, and I hope she's watching, and Mr. President, for making such a huge sacrifice, they are entitled to government support for whatever enterprise that they choose to embark on after youth service. Government intervention fund is simply inaccessible. And if government doesn't want to spend that money, they should at least use that as a collateral to guarantee them soft loans from commercial banks and the microfinance bank, and fund the SMPs for Christ's sake. So, wait, listen, the minister, the Honorable Minister of Finance has to do something about this. He has to do something about this.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. CD.
Thank you. They said NYC will now pay. everybody laughed and said, too much. They haven't asked how much. Just assume that corpers are earning 20,000 naira. These are corpers who you see with 2 handsets. Okay, they said 3, which means all the networks they have. And we're now saying 1% of 20,000 naira. 20,000 times 12 is 240,000. It's not much. 240,000 naira a year. I say 1% of it is just 2,400 naira divided by 12. I'm only telling that corper, see, just remit, that is 200 naira every month. He can't buy a loaf of bread. That's all government is asking for. It's just creating awareness. It's just creating awareness. If you know what FRS is doing to support the creation of awareness everywhere in the country, it will amaze you. We started off with STI, Student Tax Advocacy Initiatives, among students in school to understand what the simple message of taxation is. We're supporting them with computers and everything, and we have a unit in the FRS that works with them, collaborating with them, educating them, so that tomorrow, as they grow up, they can remind their parents to go and pay their taxes. That's what we think we need to do. We opened or established professorial chairs in 13 Nigerian universities to teach the subject matter of taxation. If that is done, we believe that in the university community, there will be a greater awareness towards tax payment. We're doing more. We will still do more, but there needs to be some strong collaboration between us and the tax-paying public.
I'm sorry to really interject there. I think you get a wrong impression of a youth corper who comes up to you and says they want to pay something. They actually need the tax clearance for something, and not because they have enough money to pay. A housewife who has been living on her husband needs the tax clearance for something, and not because they have the money to pay. So let us not, but the bottom line, excuse me please, the bottom line here is that the excuse me please,
Madam is on the floor.
Excuse me please, I have the floor. The bottom line, which you rightly stated here, is that the FIRS does not make the laws. I think some of these things will need to be taken to the appropriate quarters, which is the National Assembly. They need to review some of these things. Let us not continue to paper over very serious matters until we have a revolution. The youth corpers have made so much sacrifice. I have a daughter who is a youth corper. I know how I support her. And I can't imagine, I do know that there are so many youth corpers in very remote areas in this country. They went to those locations, not out of their volition, but because they were serving their fatherland.
See, here we are not expressing any sentiments. I explained to you that youth corpers never even featured in the scheme of things when it comes to taxation. They never featured. The housewife, if you don't earn income, no one is going to subject you to tax. But do you know what we see every day? If we as taxmen see these things around us every day and we cannot arrest it, then we're not worth the name we're answering. What is a youth corper doing with a tax clearance certificate? Let me tell you, even if you go to Abuja Municipal here, housewives who have those sources of income applying for TCC, and you see the TCC be utilized in the land registry, and you want revenue to just keep quiet? Anyway, we won't make an issue out of that. Madam has said the right place to address this is the National Assembly. Just go, make your representation there. Whatever comes at the end of the day is handed over to the FRS. Go and implement. Ours will be to implement. Unfortunately, we now have a law that taxes the stipend received by corpers. And not only that, even where corpers are working, serving, if they pay them allowances, the allowance is also subject to tax.
Other issues came up.
There is an issue I want to clear concerning VAT. That's to do with VAT, remittance of VAT. Now, when the VAT law came into being, what we know is that for manufacturing concerns, there is usually what is called the input VAT and the output VAT, and the right of set-off. Now, in MDAs, for instance, that they buy services and they sell services. Take, for instance, NTA. We sell airtime and we charge VAT on sales. And also, we buy other services like diesel, transmitter parts, of which VAT is included in the cost of those services. Now, what I'm asking is there any right of set-off for such type of situation? And if there is, do the payers, because for instance we are deducting VAT from those people that render service to us. Then by the time we are submitting the VAT schedule to FIRS, now do the real providers of those services get credit for the VAT we have deducted on their behalf and equally set off against our sales tax, our sales VAT? Thank you.
On input-output, our law says VAT is a multi-stage VAT system. You as MDAs are final consumers and services are rendered to you for which you are paying. But input tax definition in the VAT law does not accommodate input taxes paid on services. It says input tax are liable are those paid in connection or paid for raw materials you're using for the production of a good, or paid on goods which you will sell. To that extent, everything related to services will not have the input taxes treated as creditable. You will have to bear it. But the law is also generous enough to say, where you've paid VAT on those sundry expenses, treat them along in the P&L account. That's the saving grace. You treat them in the P&L. If, for example, you pay VAT on courier services, you are going to be charged 4,000 naira. Just include the VAT. After all, the receipt itself is showing 4,000 plus the VAT. Post that into your P&L account. You can't claim it. It's not VAT that is claimable. By the same token, when you have your suppliers who purchase cars for you, they have paid VAT already to the seller of the vehicles. When they come to you, you are still deducting 5% on the cost of the contract. Where the contractor then tells you that VAT had been paid earlier and he wants his refund, advise him to go and make his application to the revenue and we'll pay him VAT refund. Don't bother yourself about it. You are a final consumer. A final consumer cannot pass on the burden to anyone. That's why we cannot give any refund to you on account of what had been paid by your contractors. But because the contractor is not the person who should pay, it's not the ultimate consumer, he's entitled to get refund from us for any VAT amount he paid in connection with the contract. So, no right of set-off for service-related inputs.
Then I want to ask of overtime.
Overtime is taxable.
Taxable.
You add it. But see, the problem is you do not have an idea of how many hours of overtime they will work.
Yeah.
You don't know. But anytime it is paid, you have to add it to the salary of that month.
Okay.
You have to protect yourself. But salaries As long as the individuals also earn overtime, the law says it is taxable because it is in connection with the employment income.
My ministry is on IPs. I'm asking who is responsible to file annual returns. Is it the Accountant General or my department? And on individual sales assessment forms, what we give monthly is a pay slip. Is it what we use to file this assessment returns? Thank you.
You provided the input. They help you do the deduction upfront. If your staff needs tax clearance certificate, you will complete from H2 on the basis of the nominal rule details. That's it. So you are the one. If the officers feel the Form A we are talking about now, they give it to you. You will endorse that is the income they are earning. IPs is just part of the process. They don't originate the information. So please, MDAs, for the 26 of us who are on IPs, is our responsibility, not the responsibility of the Accountant General of the Federation or IPs. IPs is just a platform.
IPs is only assisting the organizations to comply with the law. So if you need any information to be able to do that, you can easily approach IPs who will give you information about amount of taxes deducted. And you know, like somebody mentioned here, there are some MDAs that still pay some stipend to their workers, motivation, allowance, or whatever. So IPs will not have information about all those ones. And when you are filing your annual returns, you are supposed to put all those off-payroll payments on your annual returns so that, the amount may be properly assessed to tax. So the obligation to file that annual returns still remain with the MDAs.
Still more.
I went to FRS Gudu office to obtain TIN for a newly registered company. A lady said we should pay 20,000 naira. That cannot be true. TIN is free. TIN is free. A lady said we should pay 20,000 naira for each director. Oh, okay. You see, Gudu office cannot give you tax clearance certificate. It is only in connection with tax clearance certificate application that you can be asked to pay for the directors. They cannot ask you to pay for directors in order to obtain TIN. TIN is free and it is automatic, obtainable on request. So please go back to that place again. Ask for the head. Don't deal with errand people.
Gudu, in case you need to know, is on the outskirts of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And the Federal Inland Revenue Service office in Gudu is located inside the Gudu market, one of the new initiatives of the FRS to move closer to traders and individual business owners, those who have to deduct and remit value-added tax and who are charged to tax under the Personal Income Tax Act. Like a thief in the night, time has stolen in on us again today. It's time to go. But then, you can join us again on this same station next week, on the same day of the week, same time of the day, for a fresh episode of Tax Matters. Remember that you can watch this episode again, and indeed any past episode of Tax Matters, by visiting our YouTube channel via your mobile device or on the web. For comments and for questions, like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter. Of course, you can also send us emails and you can call us on telephone. We want to thank you most sincerely for watching.